It didn't take much more than a bottle and 2 chairs to make a speakeasy. This is what Daniel Okrent said in his book, Last Call, The Rise and Fall of Prohibition. Today, join us for some stories. Get your own bottle, glass, or mug, and relax. This is Speak Easily, and I'm your host, Krista Stoffer.
How old are your kids?
I only have one.
You can't. Okay.
And he's 6. But he's on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
super adorable, like hilarious child.
Mm-hmm.
But very, very, I don't want to say needy. He just wants
More
to be
hands-on.
with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to be with us all the time
First
and
grade?
have all of our attention all the time.
Okay.
Kindergarten. We held him back.
Yeah.
He's got a September birthday, so
Right on.
that's
yeah.
fine.
Mine is late August. We did the
Okay.
same. So
How many do you have?
2
2.
oldest turns 17 in August.
Wow.
And younger one is turning 13 on Saturday.
Wow. It goes fast.
It does and it doesn't. I think somebody once said, like, it does fly by, but only when you look back on it, because there's so many segments of parenting that just feel long, you
Uh-huh.
know? And you sit in moments longer sometimes than you want to.
Uh-huh.
But then when you look back, it's like, oh my gosh, that was like 4 years ago. How did that happen? How did we
Yeah.
grow out of that? And I think, like, the growing out of things you don't recognize in the moment
No.
when situations either just resolve themselves or change. And
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're over that. Okay.
And for me, it's really different because the
Mhm.
phases are not typical.
Yeah.
So, like, when I see typically developing kids, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't know they could do that at that age.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea.
Right.
But the cool thing is I get to hold on to, like, my cute, sweet little
Mhm.
toddler boy a little bit longer. So he still wants mommy. But at the same time, like, I think the hardest thing for me is rather not so much dealing with him,
Mhm.
but dealing with other people dealing with him.
Yeah.
And that's the harder part
Yeah.
for me, where I'm like, I'm over this. Like, can we move on to someone else now?
Right.
But the good news is once we get him with, like, the right people,
Mhm.
then it does open up, like, another layer
Yeah.
of stuff we didn't know about
Yeah.
him. And, like, stuff that ways he's trying to communicate that we had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
We had no idea. And he talks too, but
Mhm.
like he just doesn't
just
know
a-
how to express himself
Yeah.
the same way.
It's a different
Yeah.
brain movement.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so,
Is
I-
he expressing anything musically?
oh God, yes.
I figured.
God, yes. But like also athletically too. So
Oh,
we really
cool.
don't know. Like
Yeah.
he's not like super coordinated, but he really wants to play basketball.
Okay.
So like, and he loves math
Okay.
and is just like a
Yeah.
little math genius. And so like there's all these little areas where he's really good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He said he wants to play the drums like Mr. Reggie.
Okay.
Reggie Jackson. He plays in my band for my
Okay.
stuff. And he's
Okay.
like, I want to play the drums like Mr. Reggie. And then when he sees Mr. Jacob, he's like,
Yeah.
it's Mr. Jacob,
Aw.
So
I love that.
yeah.
Oh,
So, I mean,
he's gonna do all the things.
he's going to do all the things. It's going to be really interesting to see what he
Yeah.
chooses to do. Right now, he
Mhm.
says he wants to be a pilot.
Okay.
Because we went on an airplane to go see Grandma and Grandpa.
Okay.
And he's like, and
That's
they let him go in the cockpit twice.
Oh, they still do that. Good.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it was his first flight. So like
Oh.
they let him like 2 different flights.
Yeah.
They let him go in the cockpit.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I remember doing that as a kid.
Yeah.
But I grew up. My family was in the flight industry,
Okay.
so we had a lot of experiences with flying. And in the olden days, we used to board a plane after church on a Sunday, fly to Dallas, have dinner, and fly back because we could fly non-revenue.
Jeez.
I know, but that was also when there were no gate checks and you could just kind of wander the airport whenever
And
you wanted.
TWA was still a major airline.
Uh-huh.
I remember
and
those
the
days.
smoking section.
Yeah, the smoking. I remember the ashtrays in the
Yep, I
planes.
would play with those. Mom would be like, "Stop playing with the ashtrays."
Yeah. I got in
But
trouble.
it's fun.
I got in trouble for that too.
They were right there. What else
Yeah,
were you gonna do?
But you spent the whole flight clicking
Yeah,
them.
just clicking it because your Walkman wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the CD player.
Exactly.
You just have to keep tapping.
Oh, it's such a relief to talk to somebody old enough to remember those things.
Do you guys know what any of those things are? This is where we get to fact check with the younger generation.
So,
Okay.
interesting fact, I had a Walkman. Well, I had a Walkman. It was an MP3 player that was branded Walkman.
No, sweetheart,
No,
we're
that's
talking
not
about
it.
tapes.
No, I know. I needed an actual Walkman. I never had to use one, though.
in a museum.
I know. The relics that you find from the past. Although we did ask Joe about, do you know how to fix a cassette tape? And he immediately holds up a pencil. So I was like, okay, you're good.
Okay,
You're
yeah.
good in our book.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we talked about, remember, like mixtapes and mixed CDs.
Oh,
and-
absolutely. I made mixtapes well into high school.
Yeah.
I used to listen to RIP CD 101
Oh, yeah.
and make
Yes.
like mixtape after mixtape of like the new
Yeah. All the good
independent
stuff.
artists that were coming
Mhm.
out. So yeah,
How you offered your romance to somebody through the lyrics of a mixtape.
I
Did you ever
was
do that?
I was not popular dating wise when I was in middle school and high school. So no, I never had the pleasure. And I was like far too like afraid of rejection to even
Yeah.
like
Okay.
put one forward.
I didn't do many. I think I probably made them for people that I never
Yeah.
actually gave
Oh
them
yeah,
to.
that I totally
Yeah.
did and kept it in a shoebox in my
Yes.
room.
I listened to it like, someday he'll know my heart. And
Yeah, and write in my diary like
Yeah.
Laura Jane, blah blah blah, and their last name.
I think I did that much later than I should have. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had a little, my sister and I got little diaries about that big
Yeah,
that had a little turn.
turnkey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Oh, I
Totally.
still have it. It is one of the funniest things.
I
I've ever
still
seen.
have a journal somewhere that says Mrs. Jordan Catalano. So I mean,
Oh, yeah. He was
come
so
on. I mean, come on.
hot.
I bought the Buffalo Tom album because of that episode. Like,
Who was mine? Devon Sawa. I was big into
okay.
during like the Casper days.
Oh,
He was
now I know who you're
yeah,
talking
he was
about.
the kid in Casper.
That guy too. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was- he
For a
was
moment
pretty
there.
hot. Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty much
Just Jordan Catalano.
yeah. Well, and then the early days it was Luke Perry.
Okay.
The 90210
Yeah.
days. I was into 90210.
I wasn't allowed to watch it.
I should not have been allowed to watch it. I was only in like third grade. And I should not have been allowed to watch it.
It's so bad, but it really wasn't.
I don't know. My parents like we were like the cool kids. They'd let us stay
Yeah.
up and like watch stuff we're not supposed to
Yeah.
watch. I was like the only second grader doing coffee talk from Saturday Night Live.
Teachers are laughing, but the kids.
Oh yeah. The kids thought I was a weirdo, but
Yeah.
the teachers thought I was hilarious.
But where did you go to school growing up?
McVeigh Elementary. Then I went to Walnut Springs for like a year,
Okay.
and then my parents moved to Clintonville, and so we
Okay.
went to OLP and then Watterson.
Nice.
So,
Because
know.
I think you would have been maybe 6th or 7th grade when we met. When did
Probably.
you start children's choir?
5th grade.
Okay.
So it'd be 1994, 5.
Okay.
Like
yeah, because I
end of
think
5th grade was 1995.
we were only in about a year of it together.
Yeah.
Because I think my last year was 95.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you. You look the same. It's just funny. You look exactly the same.
There's some wrinkles.
I mean,
definitely.
well,
yeah, we'd get I
some
know.
grays and but
Yes.
I mean, I love that I'm not seeing you in the Abe Lincoln tie and the red blazer.
I'm sorry, Sandy. I'm going to preface this by saying sorry to you. Those were the ugliest outfits. like,
Yeah,
How could you flirt with cute boys when you were in a red
but
blazer?
you couldn't. But I think that was the point. So
Oh, maybe that was it. But we did anyway. We tried really hard. I think my 14th birthday, sweet Kyle Barger was the only boy there
oh,
amidst, a bunch of other children's choir kids and my friends. And
oh my gosh,
at least he held his own. But yeah,
where is he now?
he's in Bexley.
Is he in Bexley?
Mhm.
Because I remember him briefly. I
Yep.
think maybe only 1 year as well.
He has not changed one iota. I
Okay.
think one of the first times I saw him, and I hadn't seen him since children's choir days. I'm at the zoo for the zoo lights with my family,
Mhm.
and he comes up and he's just like, "Get out of the park!" That was the first thing he said. It was like, "Good to know you haven't changed. Okay, we're still the same immature idiot."
I got to do something for the children's choir. I did like a featured solo for the children's choir during the
Mm.
pandemic
Oh, geez. Okay.
when they did like a broadcast concert
Uh-huh.
from the King Avenue.
Okay.
But it wasn't like, I think it was like at the end of 2020, so it
Mhm.
wasn't like right
Oh,
in the
right.
middle.
Yeah.
And I was really sad that Sandy wasn't there. I think she was sick,
Mhm.
and because I had to work with one of their accompanists, which meant I had to not sing jazz. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
I've,
"Oh, I
I've
gotta
had to explain a couple times, like it is a different thing. Like I need a different accompanist because I can't just put a lead sheet in front of them and ask
Right.
them to just do whatever.
Yeah.
But I did a musical theater piece and I sang Alto's Lament.
I love that song. That is
And
one
I
of my
so wanted to
go-tos.
sing it for Sandy because I got stuck in the alto section all the time. But like, I make a joke of that part with the high C because
Yeah.
there's no way I'm hitting a high C.
No, I've got a great high C. Nope.
No. I just blame pregnancy, and I'm like, yeah, I could have, but you know,
It's done now.
I lost like probably about a step and a half.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
because of reflux. It was horrible during
Yeah.
pregnancy.
Ugh.
So I'm like, I got to think about it if I'm gonna have another one or not, because
Mhm. You're like, you're not stealing my voice.
yeah,
It's amazing how much kids steal, you know? Like your body
Mm-hmm.
and your mind. I know my mind is half gone because of children. My memory, yeah.
and then there are those women that have the unicorn pregnancies where you're like,
What's that?
I hate you.
Yeah, don't know
so much.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I love being pregnant. It's amazing. Isn't it just the best? And I wanted to punch those
No.
women in the face.
that. It was not. I hated it. I mean, I love my kids, but
Yeah.
no, I was
Yeah.
a terrible pregnant person.
Yeah,
I don't
me too.
like feeling out of control with my body.
Yeah.
And you have no control.
I got that like nice carpal tunnel syndrome for 3 months. So I couldn't write anything.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You know, I couldn't grip anything. Like it was, yeah, I was not feeling it. And I was
Mm-mm.
huge by like
Mhm.
probably 30 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
which for my first pregnancy is
That's
insane.
scary. Yeah.
But, you know, and then you'd get people going, wow, you're carrying twins in there? And I'm just like,
Okay.
hey, come closer, please.
When are people going to learn? Stop saying things like that to pregnant women. Like, don't. Don't ask a woman if she's pregnant until she's crowning. Like, just
Yeah.
don't. I don't understand why. And I don't.
Yeah.
I worked at a pregnancy store and learned really quickly. You don't say a word
Mhm.
because if you look at somebody and say, "So when are you due?" Even though they're in a pregnancy store, it might be the aunt, and they're
Mhm.
not pregnant. So you just don't. I learned that the hard way. So you don't say a word. You just don't. You just let them go on. And if it comes up that they're pregnant or you see them crowning and breaking water on the floor, sure, then you can ask, oh, you're pregnant. That's fine. Sorry. There's my tirade about pregnancy. No, with my eldest one, I was a house. I had like the inner tube pregnancy where it was
Oh,
just
okay.
huge all around. And with my second, it was the cutest little beach ball in front. I was so
Yeah.
happy. He was 10 pounds though. That was the end of, I will never do that again.
I was 10 pounds, 4 ounces. I made my mom like hypoglycemic afterwards. So, I mean, well, that's before they did like some of the proper
That's true.
screenings for like
Yeah.
gestational diabetes and stuff like that. So, but you know,
Did you have gestational then?
you know, they tested me a couple times. They were worried about it, but like I
Mhm.
never really hit that point.
Okay.
I definitely did have to be induced because of my blood pressure though.
Oh.
But I was already at 40 weeks.
Yeah.
So
You're like, can you please remove this thing?
you know, I was 2 days past my due date and I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this
Yeah.
today. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Mom had gestational with me, and my dad actually has type 1 diagnosed as an adult.
Oh,
So
okay.
they were very concerned. First pregnancy, I went in I had to do like the second screening where they make you drink this horrific liquid and then they draw your blood, I think once an hour for 3 hours
Ooh.
just to see how it's affected. And they had student nurses that day. And when I was pregnant, the swelling, so like I have pretty decent veins now, but they were swollen, so they couldn't find the veins. So of the 3 shots I had 9 because they couldn't find anything. They kept missing the vein. I looked like a drug addict by the time I left there.
Oh my God.
It was fun. No diabetes, but drug addict, sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you grew up and then where did you go to school?
Berkeley College of Music
I've
in
heard of it.
Boston. You've heard of it. You've heard of it.
Did you go for vocal performance then?
I did.
Okay.
I did. You know, had I gone back, I might have like chosen like a double major, like music business. I think at the time I was just like, well, that's what I want to do. I want to perform.
Same.
So
Yeah.
why? And there were really a lot of great labs and things like that, like,
Mhm.
you know, studio techniques and like microphone and sound equipment stuff that you had to learn about. And so
Yeah.
it was just, you know, like I at least knew how to set up a sound system
Uh-huh.
and like what not to do with a microphone and,
Yeah.
you know, and what not to do with the EQ and the reverb and all that
Okay.
stuff. What creates feedback. I learned all those things, which was awesome. And I mean, I had some really super fun labs, but they
Mhm.
have some really great business courses
Mm.
that I kind of like wish I would have taken more advantage of.
Yeah. We don't
Um,
see that at the time, I don't think.
Well, and it was tricky at the time because we're talking 2002,
Mm-hmm.
after the record industry, like kind of right after the record industry had just been obliterated.
Yeah.
And so they're still kind of teaching the same things about the old record cycles and how it works with music. Like I did take one business course and they were still teaching like the old kind of record contract, record cycle
Huh.
type of thing because they're like, we don't really know where everything is now.
Right.
And I don't think they probably still don't.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Yeah.
just
Well, it's ever changing too.
it's a mess. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mess. And so
What was your dream with that back then? Like, what did you want to do? Was it performing jazz? Was it performing just in general?
I went into Berkeley not knowing.
Okay.
I loved singer-songwriter stuff and I loved
Mhm.
jazz. I knew I wanted to be a performer
Yeah.
and a solo performer. And I knew that I loved music. Like I originally thought I was going to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
And then high school cured me of that. Because I
got it out early.
I got around a couple of diva actresses and I was like, this is not for me. And I was realizing I was much more at home with the musicians.
Yeah.
And so like that's just where I live and that's where and I'm like, all right, I am not going to be an actress and
Yeah.
that's okay. So I, I think music was just always something that like came really, 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 really natural to me.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to like,
Be a part of
that's where I wanted to go. I knew I visited 3 schools. Actually, I applied to 3 schools. I think I only visited 2.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of knew. Like
was
my
just-
parents
yeah.
took us to Boston for spring break.
Okay.
And they said, we're going to make that a college visit for you.
Oh.
And we'll look at Berkeley. Like,
Yeah.
this is a great school.
Yeah.
We happened to go the same week as like the Singers Showcase, which is the biggest
Yeah.
event of like the year,
Mhm.
which I never got in, but but it's more geared towards pop,
Okay.
and it's kind of like the American Idol finals, if you can think
Gotcha.
of it that way.
Yeah.
So it's all about like belting and riffing and all that
Right.
stuff. And I just fell in love with the school, and then we visited another school in Boston, and and the other schools I were looking into I was interested in studying jazz,
Mhm.
but other schools you had to do like 2 years of classical and 2 years of jazz.
Okay.
And I'm like, I am not I will never be a classical singer. Like it's
Mhm.
just not,
No.
I have the technique, but it's not there.
Right. That's not what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I applied to 3 schools, one in New York, one in Boston, and one in Chicago.
Okay.
I got into all 3, but I only got a scholarship to go to Berkeley,
Okay. Which is the best anyway.
which is totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean I'm really grateful for my experience there, because one of the things that got ignited there, but I didn't really realize early on was ignited, was that I want to travel and experience other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really would like to go back and get my master's
Okay.
or a doctorate in ethnomusicology,
Ooh.
which is something that I'm so because I'm so into jazz history,
Yeah.
and especially like the African roots, and my husband's from Africa,
Yep.
and just kind of this whole, all of these different spices that have
Yeah.
gone into American
Right.
music. I just think it's
It's fast.
really fascinating and interesting,
Yeah.
and I've kind of developed some of my own courses of like American studies
Mm.
and jazz history and stuff like that, and how it's all intertwined. And so I've taught some of those like in Bangkok and Vietnam, and I've done some lectures there.
Gosh.
So I've moved around a bit.
You have? Okay, I need to hear the meet cute, because Sandy told me a little bit
Oh,
about
it's
this,
adorable.
But I want to hear the story from your lips. So tell me how you met this beloved of yours.
Okay. It is kind of like a movie. I was working like crazy in New York, and I was doing really well, but I was just tired. I was burnout.
Yeah.
And I had a friend, I mean, like I was doing like all-nighters
Mm.
to Boston and then back, and then like 3 gigs the next day in all different boroughs where I had to like lug equipment, and I'm
Yeah.
just going, and then like a friend was like, I used to do these hotel contracts, and I have one in Vietnam that they offered me, and it's like X amount of money a week, and it was obscene.
Yeah.
And you live in the hotel,
Yeah.
and you know, you get a stipend for food every day. You can have room service to your room, and like
Mhm.
they'll give you a spa package, and you work 6 days a week for 4 hours a day for like 4.5 months, and you get to be in Vietnam, and the
Yeah.
daytime is your own. I was like,
Sign me up.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
submit my stuff. So I ended up getting that job in Hanoi in 2013. And this is like 2 years before they opened up the visas. So I got to go at a really special time. Like they hadn't built
Mhm.
a modern airport yet.
Oh my gosh.
It was an airplane hangar. They were just starting to build the new airport.
Yeah.
There was no highway to the airport. So like there was like livestock and
Oh my
like
gosh.
old army guys with machine guns, like at the airport checking your passport. The visa was stapled in.
Oh my
So
gosh.
like, yeah, I was just, and then 2 years later, the country totally changed.
Yeah.
But, and then I ended up getting another gig before I left New York for India, like 4 days or something after my contract in Vietnam ended.
Mhm.
And so they were going to fly me home and then like fly me from the United States. I'm like, no,
No.
don't do that.
No.
So I said, I want to go to Bangkok. It's
Yeah.
Thailand's in between Vietnam and India. So
Yeah.
just fly me to Bangkok. It's cheaper for you. So,
Mhm.
so I did that, and I ended up just kind of shopping my demo around to different
Mhm.
hotels. Nobody was hiring.
Okay.
And but they, you know, I made a connection with a couple of people, and they really liked my stuff. So I went to India, actually met up with a piano player from New York in India, and we did 2 weeks performing there and then 2 weeks of traveling.
Okay.
And the last day when we were scheduled to fly out, I got a message from one of the hotels saying, hey, we had to let our singer go.
Mm.
Can you come in 3 weeks and stay for 3 months?
Oh my god.
And I was like, yeah, totally. So
Yeah.
I flew back to the States for 3 weeks, and then they flew me out, and I ended up at the Labua Hotel, which
Okay.
is the Hangover Hotel. If you watched Hangover 2,
Yeah.
the one where
Okay.
they landed the helicopter on the
Uh-huh.
roof, I was on the 64th floor.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Hold on to your iPad when you're up there because it's very windy. And a couple times my music stand almost got taken out with my
gosh.
iPad on it. But
gosh.
but yeah, it was cool. And my 5th day there, like when I'm in a new country, like I always try to do like a couple of things to like make myself feel like home. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, is wine gettable here? And can I find a good bottle?
Yep.
Is it affordable?
Yep.
Get myself some chocolate and
Mhm.
find myself some kind of like meditation or yoga place or
Mhm.
whatever I can find to that equivalent.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tried to do.
Nice.
Bangkok's very complicated, and I got lost. And you really can't find your way around there until you've been there for a
Yeah.
few months and you understand how it works.
Mhm.
And so I was looking for a place that didn't exist.
Mm.
And I ended up happening upon a Starbucks. This is so American and so embarrassing. And I ran into a Starbucks, and I was like, you know what? Familiar. I can go order my drink.
Yeah.
I can do some work. They didn't have my drink, and they didn't have free internet. So, so I ended up getting a drink and sitting down. There was an outdoor courtyard and cafe. And I noticed a bunch of African guys sitting at the tables there. And then there were 2 Thai women that walked up to a guy way down at the end. And I watched like a handoff. And
Mm.
having lived in like
Mhm.
Washington Heights in New York,
Uh-huh.
handoffs are not a good thing. I was like,
Mhm.
great. I picked the drug dealing Starbucks. Fantastic. Turns out that's not what it was.
Okay.
It was the gemstones trade, which is very big in Bangkok.
Huh.
And that's what my husband was doing.
Okay.
They don't like to set up their transactions at their offices
Mm.
because people know where their offices are.
Oh.
And when they hear of a
Mhm.
transaction happening, they'll get robbed. So they happen out in the open in
Yeah.
public.
Looking like a drug deal. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But like,
But it's
you
safer.
just it's
Mhm.
almost safer because you just don't know where and when they're going to be happening.
Yeah.
So because they'll get robbed.
Oh wow.
So yeah, my husband used to come home with like bags of like raw sapphires and aquamarine
Gosh.
and just to count it and like check the quality and
Yeah.
all that. He can do all that. It's amazing. But yeah, and I just started laughing out loud because I'm like, of course I picked the drug dealing Starbucks. It's great. So there was a man 2 tables down from me who heard me laughing, and then he said, "Are you laughing at me?" And I said, no, 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 no. And he was like looking at his phone, and then he did like this double take, like, he's like, oh, can I come talk to you? And then I said, it's a free country. Wait,
Oh.
wait, wait.
Hold on. Wrong place.
And then like having known that I like met him there and wasn't sure what that deal was going on.
Yeah.
He was like, he asked for my number and I was like, nah, I'll give you my Facebook. Like, I'm not sure that you're not shady.
Yeah.
But he messaged me every single day until I would agree to go out with just like, how's your day?
Aw.
So, and 10 years, it'll be 10 years
Oh my
married
gosh.
this year in
Aw,
October.
Congrats.
Yeah. I mean, no murders yet. So
That's, I say knock on wood, but we don't want to anger the sound gentleman in there.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So where did you live then?
I was in the hotel then and my contract was up in May.
Okay. Were you
And
already dating by that point?
We were like, we started dating February 13th and we're like
Okay.
together
Yeah.
for just like inseparable.
Yeah.
He and I, so I had planned to go to Vietnam after my contract ended just to see some friends for like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he made a plan to come with me. The day my contract ended was the day that the prime minister of Thailand had to step down because of the rice subsidy scandal where the government withdrew the rice subsidies. At the time I was there were major protests going on and just wasn't safe to go to certain parts of the city.
Yeah.
And they told you like, be careful because like some of the taxi drivers are really affiliated with some of these parties that are a bit militant and like, you know, just be careful. So, but what's funny is that's the day I left. Then a couple days later, he joined me in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coup d'etat happened.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's actually where we got engaged was then when he was in Hanoi and he asked me to marry him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how we do this. Like we're in separate countries. Like we don't
Mhm.
have visas. Like how do we, you know? And
Right.
so, you know, he just said like, we'll figure it out.
Mm.
And, you know, so, but he had to go back to Thailand like under martial law, which was
Oof.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then I came back to the States
Mhm.
and we tried to figure out how to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And really consulting attorneys and stuff, that they said the best way for you to do this honestly and not get denied because
Mhm.
nobody has any clue how difficult the process is,
I can't.
is just move to Thailand and do it from there.
Okay.
Because if you do the green card process from here, you could wait 3, 5, some people wait 10 years
Mm.
to get, you know,
Mhm.
to go through that. And if you do it from over there, it's, you know, like 13 months. And that's
Wow.
about how long it took us once we
Okay.
started the process. We didn't start the process right away because we really, once I moved over there, even though politically everything was kind of going crazy, we loved it.
Yeah.
Like it was
Huh.
awesome. I mean, you can afford a cleaner and,
Yeah.
you know, a maid and like all it,
Ooh.
it's cheap, you know,
Yeah.
you can have laundry service, like
Mhm.
you can go on trips to the best beaches in the world, you know?
Wow.
So believe me, we miss it.
I mean, Columbus has so many of them.
Yeah. Well, and I got to teach at universities and it was
Okay.
that also was like really great.
Mhm.
Musically, it was actually really fulfilling,
Mhm.
which you know, when you leave New York, you don't expect to find that.
Yeah.
And it was really great that I worked with a few bands who really
Mhm.
believed in me.
Mm.
And so and we got regular gigs.
Mhm.
And that really changed a lot. And that's also happened here too,
Cool.
which has been like an
Yeah.
interesting thing that I didn't expect to come home to my hometown and then like
Mhm.
find a core group of guys usually guys
Yeah.
that I really
Yeah.
love to work with and they love working with me.
Mm,
And like,
that's a dream.
yeah. And that's what makes, you know, the project that we're doing so special is
Yeah.
like this group it's phenomenal. It's so
That's
good.
amazing. Tell
Yeah.
me about the guys that are in the group. 'Cause I
Um,
know one of them because he was in children's choir.
Yes, Bradley Mellon.
Yep.
And occasionally we still sing together.
Aw.
We do a Laurel Canyon show, which we hope will be our next record. And we do like some mamas and the papas,
Oh,
like
nice.
harmonies and
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
So we do all kinds of things
Yeah.
like that are infused into jazz.
Mhm.
But this project, so I've known Brad for years,
Mhm.
and Brad's worked with my group.
Mhm.
And Tony Bernardi is our pianist, and
Mhm.
I had only met him when Copious was still around, I subbed for Bobby
Okay.
Floyd one of those Sundays that he used to play.
Nice.
And I had to find somebody, and somebody recommended Tony, and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And he's my dude. Like, so I use him for my stuff too. Like, he's brilliant.
Well, fun fact, Joe, are you in there? Joe studied with him.
Tony's amazing.
Joe is not, but Noah is.
Yeah.
Tommy keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the nicest person,
Aw.
and also just like can play anything. And he has no clue how good he is too, which is like
Because jazz piano is a skill within a skill.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hear. I've
Yeah.
sent you guys some
Yeah.
samples, and it's just
Which we're gonna throw up
he's
here.
he's amazing. And so, and also with my original stuff, like I ask a lot of my players with a
Mm.
variety of styles. Like
Mhm.
I asked them to play a samba. I asked them to play like R&B backbeats.
Okay.
It's not just ring ding a ding swing. It's not like it's a huge variety of grooves,
Mhm.
and he can do that. And not everyone can do that.
No.
Because in jazz, you generally have people they have a thing that they do, and that's it.
Mhm.
Where I'm different, I kind of do all of it.
Yeah.
And so, but I try to just make it sound like me through my arranging skills and through my writing skills. So Tony's great with that. And then Jake, actually, like Jake Reed, the drummer, and he's, the band leader of the trio. Like they've operated without me, but now we call ourselves a group. And
Yeah.
So, but Jake, he came to like my first gig back in Columbus. I did the Jazz and Ribs Fest in
Mhm,
2016, and then approached me about a gig at the Refectory.
Ooh.
And the Ellington show was our first
Okay.
gig together, because in Columbus you have to come up with themes.
Yeah.
A lot of times you
Yeah.
can't always
You
do.
can't just do your thing.
Yeah, but through this, we've come up with something really, I think, really cool. And at first it started out just like, let's do a song from every era of Ellington, and just call it like rare Ellington music. And then we started to develop as a group,
Okay.
and the show kind of shifted and changed. And each show that we do that is a particular theme has kind of been that way, where like
Nice.
it just starts to shift and change and tailor to what we can do as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the cool thing. Like we didn't even really come up with, that was 2018 that we first started working together. So we didn't come up with the name until like 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then, our last gig of 2020 was like January. and it was the first like Shades of Ellington presentation.
Nice.
And then we were on break for a while.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
but we got this idea to do the recording. We did another presentation of this up in Akron at Blue
Okay.
Jazz.
Nice.
And we just had this gig where we looked at each other like, that was stupid good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's happening right now with us? And I just came up to Jake and was like, I think we should make a record. What do you think? He's like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
And Jake is a phenomenal drummer. He's a phenomenal composer, and also super, super great business partner.
Mm.
And that is a
Neat.
rarity
Mhm.
where we just balance each other out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he definitely like calms my crazy. And I definitely like push the details and the deadlines and stuff. And so, and he's just a really good force to have, that he really balances out this
Mm.
whole group of musicians.
Mhm.
And he plays with like a real level of sophistication
Okay.
that I just very, very much enjoy. And so it's been a dream to work with 4 guys in a male dominated industry
Mhm.
that respect my opinion
Yep.
and want to hear my opinion and want to work with my ideas and don't try to like pick them apart, because I've had that a lot as a composer, where it's like, well, what you meant to write was, and I was like, oh, thanks. Or my favorite is, who helped you write that?
Are you kidding?
Yeah. That's my fave. Yeah, but
yeah.
it's what jazz is. I have been trying to like do a little background research on female uh jazz faculty in
Mhm.
Columbus.
Mhm.
I think there's maybe one.
Wow.
And in all of Ohio, there's probably less than 5.
That's crazy.
It's not.
It's just-
It's a problem.
Yeah.
In one of our major clubs here, who books, in 10 weeks they book 70 musicians.
Mhm.
Only 77 of those groups were female-led
Oh
projects.
my gosh. Is that just a training thing, do you think? Or
I
that-
think that has been the way that the industry has operated for a long time. And it's only been within the last like 10 years or so that like in New York and Boston, they're starting to set up things like WIJO in New York. But unfortunately, and I do know the woman who runs that, Roxy Koss, we were in the Betty Carter Jazz Ahead program together at the Kennedy Center.
Nice. Oh, wow.
But they unfortunately really only service musicians in New York. Their mentor program reaches out to the rest of the country, but the opportunities that they publish are only in New York City.
Yeah.
And then, you have Berkeley's Jazz and Gender Justice
Mhm.
program, which they just did the new standards record and won a Grammy for that, where it's all jazz standards written by women composers, which have been historically left out because there are tons of female jazz musicians and composers, tons, but they've just been left out of history. And
No
so,
idea.
yeah, you wouldn't,
Yeah. No, you wouldn't have
you
heard that.
you wouldn't.
Wow.
So I think, the major cities, the bigger cities are kind of trying to push that way a little bit.
Mhm.
I think we still have some work to do. I know Jazz Arts Group does some things in the month of March, and I'm just so looking forward to seeing more here
Mhm.
because I know that there's some people working hard in that organization who are really trying to push for more.
Yeah.
But it is a thing. We need female booking agents.
Mhm.
We need female managers of clubs and
Mhm.
bookers of clubs. We need female PR reps.
Yeah.
We need female record label executives. We need that infrastructure
Mhm.
to start to change, I think, before we start to see more
Right.
female artists being
Mhm.
presented
Mhm.
in this part of the country.
Yep.
So hopefully,
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was.
it's a big thing, and I'm really lucky to work with these guys, and also in my band I work with Reggie Jackson, and he is also a like phenomenal person,
Mhm.
close friend. He's the music director of the Harmony Project,
I love
and so yeah, he's the best, and he's been my friend for like ever. I've known
Yeah.
him since I was like 12.
Oh.
Because I used to come into Columbus Percussion for my drum lessons, and he was working there.
Nice. I love
So
that.
yeah,
So
so
exciting.
yeah,
You guys have a big show coming up.
we do. April 12th,
Okay.
we have our album release at the McConnell Arts Center
Mhm.
at 7 p.m. We're very, very excited. I don't think anyone has any idea how good this group is.
Yeah.
As Sandy put it to me, when she came, she did come to see us at Ginger Rabbit.
Ginger Rabbit. Oh, I need to get out there.
It's
nothing
a
but great things.
phenomenal club. We're trying to get back there with our own group, sometime I think in June.
Mhm.
I know that I will be there with my group June 19th, but
Okay.
she said that it's like going to a New York jazz club when I hear you guys. Like
Yeah.
it's
That's an honor.
and that means a lot. I mean, that
It
means a
does.
lot. But we have some really great musicians in this town. But like, we're really excited about this show because this show's like 6 years
Mm-hmm.
of like toiling over it, and we spent the last year making this record, and we're just really proud of it. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I've done quite a few of the arrangements on there, and Brad put in some, and so did Tony and Jake, and the performances on the recording are just astounding. So I highly recommend that people come out to the McConnell.
Yeah.
There are some discounted tickets for students too.
Nice.
So the students are
Yeah.
half price.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
And the McConnell's a fun place to play too.
it's a beautiful venue.
We had Kim Goodman on a couple of months ago.
Oh, did
she
you?
is the bee's knees. We like her a lot.
She is. Well, and I told her, I said, I love seeing a woman executive
Yep.
director. So that's great.
It
Yeah.
is. What I'm seeing, at least as of late, is so many more corporations, especially arts organizations, finding strength and growth by having women at the helm.
Mhm.
I worked with Opera Columbus for the last couple of years, run by women.
Wow.
Things get done.
Yep.
The changes happen, and it's awareness is being made, and how can we grow, and how can we change, and not.
Yep.
No offense to the guys, but it just, I feel like we're starting to get to these places where women are being recognized for their leadership more so.
Where I have run into problems trying to be like a leader,
Mhm.
unfortunately, is booking.
Okay.
That I have tried to book some venues, and that's where honestly Jake does a lot of the booking for the group.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
not really for that, he's brilliant at it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just got this personality that is just so personable. He's just so nice to talk to and to work with.
Yeah.
But there are some places that I have approached that I can't even get them to respond.
Interesting.
And then he will approach them, and
And they'll take
it's
it.
immediate, yes, and so there is something to that sometimes, unfortunately,
Yeah.
in this world, to still have a guy to work with, because
Mhm.
sometimes with certain people you need it. But I'm lucky to work with these, 3 gentlemen, because
Mhm.
they are just, I can't say enough good things. And
Yeah.
I just, listening to the recording after we got the masters back like a week and a half ago,
Oh wow.
and I put it on my headphones, and we had a guy out of New York City. His name is Jeremy Lucas. He did the New Standards record and won a Grammy for that. So
Oh
he
my
mastered our
gosh.
album.
Yeah.
And then we worked with Orange Judio and Joey Gerwin locally
Mhm.
for all of the recording and the mixing.
Okay.
And then we sent our masters off, but
Yeah.
we got him back a week and a half ago, and I just,
Just sobbing.
I was like my headphones on, and I was like,
Oh,
and I called Jacob. I'm like, it's so good.
Oh.
I can't. Like,
It's your baby.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
That's
So,
incredible.
and and it's like a cool thing when your kid hears your music and he's like, that's mommy,
Oh, I love
like,
that.
that's mommy.
Yeah.
And and then he knows the difference between the bands too. He's like, well, that's Mr. Jacob, and like, that's Mr. Reggie. Like,
Wow. Okay. That's
no, he just knows,
just
like,
knows
mommy
style.
does this music with this group, and mommy does this music with this group. And so, but I mean,
That's so fun. What was your? I know this is like choosing children, but what is your favorite song off the album?
that's really hard.
I know, or maybe most fun.
So I'm not on all of the songs.
Okay.
There are 2 that are instrumental.
Okay.
Actually, one is instrumental with the group, and one is just solo piano.
Mm.
And I have to say, Tony's performance of Retrospection, which is a more classical piece
Mhm.
that Ellington wrote,
Yeah.
it's a solo piano piece, and
Interesting.
it is like, we thought we had to change it a whole bunch to like make it different. Like, that's a jazz thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we gotta change it. We gotta do all this special stuff with it. And we learned with this music, we don't have to do anything that crazy. We
Mhm.
just have to interpret it our way.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's what makes it really interesting, this album, is that it's a traditional take on jazz, but all the songs sound like us.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like, okay, it's just another person playing in a mellow tone, or,
Yeah.
And so Tony played Ellington's piece and read from the sheet music, but he added his own little flair to it and his own phrasing. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that I like it better than the original, because I feel like Ellington would roll over in his grave. But I think it's, one of my favorite recordings of it, because it's
Cool.
just, it's so heartfelt and beautiful.
Mhm.
I think I tend to like those romantic classical ones.
Yeah.
Single Petal of a Rose is also beautiful, one of my favorites. And also Sunset and the Mockingbird, which is our single.
Mhm.
And we totally changed the feel. And it's actually an instrumental piece. So I
Okay.
got to write lyrics to it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice.
Through the deep of night, he cries out a desperate plea, waiting for love to answer and set him free. Maybe one day he'll hear her sing again, and then her echoing call might make winter fall and bring him spring again.
And that was very difficult because I'm like, I don't know what to talk about
Okay.
with this song.
What topic are we gonna go?
Because I'm like, it's called Sunset and the Mockingbird. What did Ellington, why did he title it that?
Yeah.
And I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
So what I did was I just ran out of ideas. And then it was like 2 days before the recording session. I was like, all right, I got to come up with something. And I researched mockingbirds.
Yeah.
And I found out that mockingbirds mate for life.
Oh,
And they can sing over 200 songs, particularly the males.
interesting.
And that if their mate has flown away and they can't find them, they'll often sing all the way through the night so that
Oh,
their mate will hear their call.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
And so I wrote the story
Ugh.
based on that because I
Oh,
was like, that's the
that's perfect.
sweetest thing
Yeah.
I've ever heard. So I wrote it as like a little love story about a bird.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to hear it. Wow.
Yeah. So like you figure it out.
But maybe that's what he intended, you know? I mean, that seems like it would fit.
I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I do a vocal solo on Drop Me Off in Harlem.
Drop me off in Harlem, any place near 125th and Harlem. There's someone waiting there who can make it feel like heaven up in Harlem. I don't need your downtown, you can keep your downtown, 'cause there's no one down in downtown who can swing it just the way they do uptown in Harlem.
And we wanted to do that's probably my second favorite probably because we do like a modern take on like we do the traditional sounding like Drop Me Off in Harlem, like visualizing the 30s and 20s, 30s and 40s in Harlem, and then we try to bring in modern Harlem.
Ooh, okay.
There's a little Latin vibe in
Yeah.
there.
Relax to the rhythms, to the rhythm of the street. The mixtape lasting sets the tone, and the man in white robes yells, "Devil, devil," at me as he preaches and moans. Friends embrace with a secret shake. They're all almost the smell of incense and cocoa butter, and the vendors with fire.
Because like half of Harlem speaks Spanish now. So and talking about like the culture of Harlem as I remember it. I did live up there for a couple of months and one of my best friends is still there on 157th. And so I kind of just talked about the things I used to see walking down 125th Street coming out of the A train and walking all the way over to the 6 train,
Yeah.
all the way to, Lenox Avenue in that area. And so, but I kind of did that in the studio without writing it down. I just was like, all right, we're just going to go for it. I couldn't figure it out beforehand. And it just wasn't coming to me. And I'm like, all right, this is just going to be one of those things where I just go in and do it.
Oh my
and whatever happens, happens.
That's incredible improv, though.
Well, I'm lucky. I just got lucky that it only took like 1 or 2 takes to
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
You're like, I'm not going to remember this, but
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, now I'll remember it because
Well, yeah,
it's recorded.
You've got it down now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a skill, though.
Yeah. I mean, well, and we have Caravan is a very well-known Ellington tune.
Across the sand, so this memory of our
do-do-do-do-do-do. Like everyone knows that one. But so Brad, whenever we play that one, Brad starts us off. And whatever Brad comes up with, we feed off of that. So we give him that arrangement because
Yeah.
it's like he's always the one to sort of lay it out for us. And it is epic.
Yeah.
It's like 13 minutes long.
Oh my gosh.
But we did it all in like one take. We didn't need, but that's what we hoped to capture with this recording, rather than having like, okay, we're going to have perfect 3.5, 4.5 minute polished radio ready tunes. We wanted to go in like the old Miles Davis groups and say like, we're just going to play like we play live and
Take down what you get.
take down what you get. And that's why Caravan is like 13 minutes.
But I think that's what jazz is, though.
Yeah.
It's those moments that you just are like drawn with the person taking the lead in that moment, or drawn with
Right.
who's taking it next. Where's it going to go?
Right.
That's what I love about it.
And we don't want everything to be super perfect. Like there's some songs where you can hear like Tony tapping his foot and like you can hear some things like that, but we kind of wanted that. We wanted more of an organic sound. And I take that approach with singing anyways.
Yeah.
Where I don't believe that every single note should be perfect and perfectly on point, or the perfect timbre, or it's not interesting to me for this style of music.
Yeah.
If I were singing Broadway, I would feel differently about that.
Yeah.
But for jazz, I want to hear some breaks and some odd textures and some things that where you slide into it. And because I want to hear a variety of that. I think we put too much emphasis on singers on focus on the pretty. And the pretty isn't always interesting. And also not soulful
No.
at all.
No.
When every note must be perfect, there's no soul in it.
No.
So
The storytelling is taken out of it. It's interesting that you say that you chose not to be an actress, but yet so many of the ideas that you speak of is exactly what we do, what we want to see in theater. You know, we want the notes to be good, but if you're not telling the story, it doesn't matter.
I mean, there is an element of acting, especially when you're performing in front of an audience. There, you have to connect. And that is something where I think singers in jazz understand so much more than instrumentalists, because we have the words and we have to speak.
Yep.
Not to say that instrumentalists don't understand it, but a lot of them don't. And that whole thing of kind of like, I don't know, I forget which player did it. They turn their back to the audience, you know, and like some guys will think that that's really cool. And it's not. They paid to see you.
Right.
Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
so you're there to entertain them. And if you want to keep working and keep eating, like, you know,
got
you're
it.
there to entertain. So there has to be that level, a little bit level of acting for me with the words and with how to introduce a song and
Yeah.
draw the audience in and make them shut up when they think that they can talk over you. And so, you know, that's
Is that hard to deal with?
yeah. It's tough sometimes.
Is that because people think, well, I'm in a jazz club, this is just background kind of for me? Do you think that that's
It doesn't happen everywhere.
okay?
And venues in New York will very specifically say this is a listening room, and that's their nice way of saying
Shut
like
up.
no talking during the show.
Yeah.
We encourage people to listen and not to talk. I think venues here are not ready to say that to audiences
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
And I understand because it's not a successful jazz club has not been able to stick around that long here.
Yeah.
But I think we have a couple of places who are really doing a great job.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they'll get more of that policy. But I never understood that. Why would you pay a ticket
Right.
price
then
or,
talk to
or
your-
cover charge and then just talk over it the whole time? But there are some shows where I've been to where people are doing that, and I can see why they're doing it. You know, you have to take it upon yourself to entertain the audience. I will say that most of the time at my shows, maybe I deal with one or two stragglers because I try to focus on the storytelling and having these moments of like real quiet and knowing how to create these sort of dramatic pauses where like I'm like, gotcha. You know, like
You're not talking now.
you know,
are ya?
but and if one or two people do talk in that kind of setting, everybody else
Yep.
is looking over at them, going, "What is your problem?"
Yeah.
Like, you know, so
Good.
so most of the time, no. I mean, look, restaurant gigs, you are background,
Yeah.
and you just expect it. And I mean, in New York, we used to have people sit right in front of the speakers and go, "Can you turn down so we can like talk?" And I'm like, "Then sit. Oh, then go. Okay." Well,
Somewhere else.
but it's fine. Like you just
Yeah.
get used to that, you know?
Yeah.
But in stage performances, it can get a little jarring, but most of the time I don't run into it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a skill to try to quiet the audience.
Yeah. What are the jazz places in Columbus that people should be frequenting?
I
So
love Ginger Rabbit.
Okay.
It's a different vibe, but I love Blue Note Jazz Cafe.
Okay.
Because that place is the audience, they know music
Mm-hmm.
and they will absolutely like let you know whether you're good or not.
Oh.
And
okay.
I love that about
Yeah.
that place because it forces me to bring it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so it reminds me of a jazz club I used to play at in Boston called Wally's. It's
Nice.
it's just one of those like cool vibes, good food, you know, like I like it. That's on East Main Street. You know, there are other places that play jazz,
Mm-hmm.
but like Dick's Den, I've been there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but the only thing I have with going to Dick's Den is that I'm old and can't stay up that late sometimes. it's just the show start at 10. But I will tell you that is a great venue because you can play whatever you want.
Okay.
And like they have total freedom with
Yeah.
like you just come in and be you and do whatever project you want.
Yeah.
And that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing at this place called Adelaide's. It's not really a club so much. It's a restaurant, which
Yeah.
they do like a separate bar area that has jazz.
Okay.
And that place is fun, but for different reasons. I don't play original music there. And right now they're only doing duos, but sometimes they have more musicians.
Okay.
But that ends up being almost like, I don't want to say piano bar atmosphere because we don't really like do requests all that much.
Right. Right.
But it is more intimate like that like I can be off microphone and talk to the audience while
Yeah.
I'm on stage.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like a little living room
Nice.
where like everybody just sitting around listening and chatting. And then they sometimes say, "Hey, do you know this song?" And I'm okay. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's not always that they know jazz standards. So,
Right.
you know, but occasionally they'll be like, "Do you know this song?" And
No, not Baby Got Back. We're not
Yeah.
going to do that one up here. Sorry. Although
no,
that-
we don't get requests like that.
That's good.
But yeah,
That's good.
in Asia, I did.
Did you really?
Well, I get like, "Can you sing Celine Dion? She's my favorite jazz singer." And I'm like, or my favorite is in Thailand, like, "Oh, can you sing Adele? You big girl like Adele." I was like, okay, you know, but they don't mean it as an insult
Yeah.
there. It's just very matter of fact.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
this is just like what you look like.
Yeah.
What's the problem? You know, it's very backwards for us.
Yeah.
But for them, it's totally
It's
normal. Yeah.
that's
So you just learn to adjust.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Okay, so one more time, the McConnell Arts Center,
April 12th.
April 12th. People can buy tickets at McConnell. Can they buy them at the door? Pre-sale? What do we need to do to
It's highly recommended that you go to the McConnell Arts Center website
Okay.
and purchase them in advance.
Yeah.
Because we are getting some really big pushes in the next couple of weeks, and I can't guarantee that they'll be available. But if there are seats left, you can buy them at the door. But I would go to their website and
Amazing.
yes,
And you're selling the album there that night?
we are selling
Okay.
CDs.
See, compact discs.
You know, we debated on that. We're like,
hard.
should we even? And
People still like that though.
yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to a couple of my friends, even in New York, who were like, I ordered 500
Mhm.
and I was out in 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
So there are still a lot of people who have
Yeah.
CD players.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
I don't.
I don't either.
No. But
I don't either, at
but
least not a
sometimes
working one.
maybe the tangibility of it.
Yeah.
Like I have your album. I literally have your album.
And then you can sign it.
Yeah.
And then I have the liner notes and the pictures. And
yeah.
there's still something about that that's not replaceable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to do an LP someday, like to
Yeah.
do like an actual record vinyl.
Mhm.
Those are crazy expensive to
Right.
produce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of these days we'll do one of
You
those.
can do that.
Yeah.
That's the goal. We'll have you on next time with your LP.
Fingers
We're
crossed.
putting it out there. It's out
Fingers
there now.
crossed.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so
and
much.
also, it's so stupid that we haven't caught up in the last one.
I know. Well, I've been away. I mean, I've
That's
only
true.
been back since 2016. And then I had my baby in 2017.
You've been
Then-
a little busy.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
once I picked up with performing, the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
So people were like, I didn't even know you've been here. Like,
Yeah.
where did you come from? And I'm like, well,
I was here.
I was here.
I was here.
I was here.
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited. For
Hopefully I didn't say anything too terrible. Because I didn't know you were filming and recording for like half of it.
Yeah, we don't tell. We don't on purpose. We don't tell you when we start. just
Oh,
to make
that's
it nice.
mean.
I know we're cruel, evil human beings. But thank you so much for coming on. This was
Yeah,
great.
thank you
and
so
I'm
much for having
excited
me.
for you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right.
for listening.
Thank you.
Boxland Media. Think big.